Can Cooper Rush the Dallas Cowboys pull off the upset win in Week 5 against the Rams? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your
Locked
daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on
Cowboys.
Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing well. It's Friday for another game week. It's a little bit weird for me this week because I'm actually in Dallas the week that Dallas is in Los Angeles to be playing the Rams, but somehow that all works out for us, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and start previewing this game. A big game for the Cowboys, sitting at 3-1, going against the Rams, who are coming off a Monday night loss to the 49ers. I want to talk about the Cowboys offense. First and foremost, do you think Cooper Rush, this will be his 5th career start, will be able to generate enough offense in this game to give the Cowboys a shot?
I mean, I think that's the big question for me too, right? Is the amount of hay that the offense is going to be able to make against this defense? It's obviously very top loaded with superstars. I think the key is going to be how the rest of the kind of middle and down roster folks play. Yeah. I think the Cowboys are going to have to use CD Lamb as a lot of a decoy, because they're going to focus on trying to shut him down. So you're going to need some of these down roster playmakers to step up, and that means Noah Brown. And, that's one thing where the Cowboys have had a little bit of a stroke of luck, right? Where their backup quarterback has a high level of chemistry with the alternate wide receivers on this team. So if you want to take away CeeDee Lamb, Cooper's more than comfortable throwing the ball to Noah Brown, So I think that's really going to be the case. Is you're going to need to live and die with some of the kind of second and third tier weapons of this offense, as this Rams defense is going to take away your first tier guys. And then when you get the opportunities, you need to make sure you take your shots with CeeDee Lamb down the field when he's open, when he has the opportunity. The times that Ramsey's not covering him, or that they're not, overloading coverage his way, that's when you start to take the shots. And I think you just got to be you got to find a way to have a reliable run game. You just have to have it, because you need to be putting yourself in advantageous third down situations against this defense. You certainly do not want Aaron Donald opportunities against a pass obvious situation, no matter where he's lining up.
And you don't want Jalen Ramsey breaking on routes, and you don't want Bobby Wagner coming downhill and making like this. This defense is so reliant on those 3 players. You've got to at least keep them on their heels a little bit, because they're so good. They're going to know what's going to be happening, right? Like Bobby Wagner, he's going to get a great beat on what plays are going to be called, but just don't let those guys absolutely wreck this game.
Yeah, and I think that's the $1,000 question or $25,000 question for these guys. Can they find a way to make all this work against a group of guys that are talented, but it's not the entire team. It's there's a concentration of 4 or 5 guys that can make the majority of their plays. You still got Leonard Floyd. He's not quite the same player that he has been in previous years. I think that there's ways for the Cowboys to do this, for them to move the football and score points. But I also think that this is going to be a big they're going to rely heavily on their defense. Their defense is going to need to make plays for them in order to get the ball, get good field position, because asking them to do the kind of 90-yard drive down the field and to score touchdowns like they did at least once in the last few weeks, that may be a little bit too much against this defense.
I'll be interested to see if the Cowboys can take advantage of the other defensive backs on this team not named Jalen Ramsey. So in case you aren't familiar, they've had some injuries in their secondary. David Long, their starting outside cornerback opposite of Jalen Ramsey, he's out. their nickel cornerback, Kobe Durant, he is out. Their third safety, who they like to play a lot of, Jordan Fuller from Ohio State, he is also out in this game.
That's a big one, honestly.
Yeah, it's a big one. So they are playing a 7th-round pick, Deron Kendrick, who you might remember from this pre-draft process a little bit, played at Clemson, played at Georgia, ran a 4.7 40, which is
really
slow.
I remember the 4.7 40. That's what I definitely remember. Yeah.
You've got to take advantage of those guys. Taylor Rapp, we liked a little bit pre-draft. He's also slow. So like get players in space, allow them to make plays. Again, the key is just don't let those 3 superstars ruin this game, because they certainly can.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I think that's kind of where the Rams have paid for a lot of this stuff, right? Is the Rams model of having top heavy players has kind of, all it takes is 1 or 2 injuries and suddenly the house of cards falls, which
they have. I mean, they're not quite there yet, but they have 3 significant injuries in their secondary that are tough to come back from.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we'll talk about the offense in a second, but I think when you run that sort of model of team building, the kind of I won't use the word, but F them picks, sort of reality is that the truth is if you miss on even one of your free agent signings, it can be detrimental. Because you don't have alternatives in house the way that the teams that draft well do. Yeah. So, and I think that applies to the defense, and it certainly applies to kind of Allen Robinson and some of the stuff on the wide receiver core in the offense as well.
Yeah. So we'll see. That'll be the toughest thing. I'm not sure the Cowboys are going to be able to run super well in this game. They still have some really good players up front. Not only Aaron Donald, but Ashawn Robinson. Greg Gaines is a really good nose tackle if you don't know who he is. So if the Cowboys can find ways to run the ball and just, keep in manageable second downs, manageable third downs, I think they will have a lot of success. Where they absolutely can't get into is third and longs. You're just not going to be able to make a living against Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey on third and long. You just can't.
I think that they actually will have a little bit more success running the football than they did last week, simply because I think that they're going to see more odd man fronts, which will mean that they'll be able to vary their run game schemes a little bit more. You'll see more man, more power, more guys getting out and getting out in front of a running back outside. And I think that's important. You don't want to just beat your head on inside zone and wide zone against Aaron Donald. I mean, he'll backdoor the wide zone, and he'll run the running back down before he even gets to the hole. So you got to find ways to get your offensive linemen to down block on some of these guys, like you mentioned, Gaines, like obviously Donald, and then get angles and get people out in front so that you can, run over Ramsey with Zach Martin and that sort of thing. So hopefully with more of that, more variety, you'll keep guys like Bobby Wagner guessing, because that's the last thing you want to do is start being obvious and predictable, because especially with Bobby Wagner there, he'll destroy your game.
Is this a Tony Pollard or an Ezekiel Elliott game?
They're going to need both.
I think so.
I think Pollard is definitely going to have to have a couple of big plays outside.
They need him to have like 2 chunk plays in this game.
That would be nice. Yeah. I think it's going to be important that Zeke is able to grind out, they're going to have to find ways to run the football inside. I mean, like they're going to have to at least run the football inside, whether they will have any success or not. They got to find a way to remove negative plays, and that's where Zeke's going to be really important. Is at least just getting, hey, give me 2 or 3. If you throw the ball on 1st and 10 and it's incomplete, give me 3 yards on 2nd down so I can get a 3rd and 7. That's not 3rd and 10.
I would also say I think this needs to be a Kafante Turpin game. We saw in the the 49ers game, Deebo Samuel took a little slant 60 yards to the house. Now, obviously, Turpin's not Deebo Samuel, but what you see is this is the slowest secondary in the NFL by far, even with Jalen Ramsey. Get some of your athletic guys in space, make some plays, because I just don't trust Kendrick and Rapp making tackles in the open field against somebody like Turpin.
Gallup. Gallup, I think, will have a big game. He's always been a problematic matchup for the Rams. I mean, even very famously when he did not get the pass interference call in that one game several years ago. So I think that they don't really have anyone who it'll be interesting to see what they do, right? Like, will they shift all their coverage to CeeDee Lamb and then put Ramsey on Gallup?
According to Locked On Rams, who we talked to on Thursday, Travis Rogers, that's the belief that Ramsey's going to stay on the outside, cover Gallup, and they'll try to double team CD.
I think that's interesting. That's an interesting approach because I think that's probably what I would do if I were the Rams and I didn't know who Noah Brown was.
Yes.
Because I think the problem with doing that is leaving Noah Brown on now, especially with the secondary the way it is with them, leaving Noah Brown on whoever 5th, 6th, 7th round pick 2 years ago that they're having.
It's gonna, and the thing with them is a lot of times they'll use rap to come down and play like
that's a really bad idea.
But see, like that's where like a Noah Brown could have a big game in this one. Also, if Dalton Schultz is healthy, like Schultz just on some drag routes and some crossers could have a big impact.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't at all be surprised if the tight ends had a big game in this, right? Like you compress the formations with 13 personnel, and then you break it out and spread it out. And with this slow secondary, you should be able to make some hay with some easy passes with big body tight ends catching the ball on the other end.
All right, let's pause so we can tell you guys about Simply Safe. Here's a sports analogy for you. When it comes to burglars, your home is like the end zone, and you need the absolute strongest defense you can muster. That's why we use and trust Simply Safe Home Security. At Simply Safe, your safety is the only thing that matters. Their cutting-edge technology, powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who have your back at all times, so that you know your home is safe. With 24/7 professional monitoring, Simply Safe agents call you the moment a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not home or can't be reached. They've got HD security cameras for the inside and outside parts of your home. They have smarter ways to detect motion so they know that a threat is real and not just some animal walking across your yard, and even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/lockedonnfl. Save 20% on your Simply Safe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month absolutely free. Visit simplysafe.com/lockedonnfl to learn more. There is no safe like Simply Safe. All right, let's talk about the Cowboys defense. How do they slow down this awesome passing attack of the Los Angeles
Rams? It's funny, right? Like, because we talk to a lot of casual fans in our job, right? And if you are a casual, and that's not a derogatory term. No. I mean, people that aren't following or that don't have sickness like we do,
yes.
that have to follow this all the time, they would be not made fun of, I think, by the idea that if they believed that the Super Bowl champions who had an incredible offense last year were kind of continuing down that path. Clearly, anyone who's watched the Rams this year will tell you that that's not the case.
Yep.
They came into the season deficient, I think is probably the way to put it. I think that their offensive line was not where it needed to be. And I think we're going to try to anticipate getting, past all that and try to figure out a way. Look, they lost their best offensive lineman in the offseason to retirement. Whitworth's not walking through that door. They've had some injuries, but they had injuries at spots that were already undermanned and they already kind of underpowered, I would say, as far as talent wise. And it's paid. I mean, it's caused huge problems for this offense. They have been unable to run the football consistently, which has always been a huge part of the Sean McVay offense. They can't protect Matthew Stafford. So Stafford has regressed to Detroit levels Matthew Stafford, which is not surprising because ultimately that is what it is. If you can surround Stafford with players that can protect him, he has incredible talent. He's got incredible physical talent. But if you're forcing him to make the plays himself, if you're forcing him to operate in a dirty pocket, if you're forcing him to, run a passing attack that doesn't have a run game that's opening up windows for him, he's not unstoppable. He's not, Aaron Rodgers.
He's Mahomes. No.
Yeah, or Mahomes. Like so what you've seen is a guy who is a 30, plus quarterback who still has a very big, strong arm. He can still move a little bit, but he came into the season, injured with a bad shoulder, and he's only taken I think 25 hits or something like crazy like that through 4 games. I mean, he's been hit a lot, and I can't imagine that's helping the situation.
No.
And I think there's probably, I mean, watching the San Francisco game, it sure felt like there was that one time when he came off the sideline and McVay and him were talking, and it just felt like they weren't on the same page about what he was supposed to be doing and with some of the protection stuff. I understand that it's the Super Bowl champions. I understand that we're playing them in Los Angeles. I agree with Mike McCarthy. After watching what happened with them in versus San Francisco, I can't understand why the Cowboys are 5.5 point underdogs against these guys, because this offense just isn't what it was last year. And I don't know. Like, I don't know, like even with the idea like Sean McVay will have a bounce back game and the offense will figure it out. Even like if you believe that,
which I do a little bit.
I do too. I honestly do too. But I don't, having kind of explored that a little bit, I just don't see like how much better they can get, right? Like,
let's talk about the offensive line really quickly, because they were so bad against the 49ers. So here's the issues going on. Their starting center, Brian Allen, has a knee injury. He has not practiced the last 2 days. He won't play on Sunday. His backup, Coleman Shelton started. Yep. He started last week. He got injured with an ankle. He will not play this week. So I'm not quite sure who's going to start at center for them. They didn't have David Andrews, their left guard, last week, and that created a lot of problems. Andrews was in concussion protocol. He did practice on Thursday. I would expect him to play. But the problem is, it's that right side of the offensive line. Whoever starts at center, they've got this guy named Jackson playing right guard. They played Bobby Evans at left guard. The interior of their offensive line isn't good. On top of Joseph Noteboom, their left tackle, just not being very good. So I think they're going to be a little bit better than what we saw last week, but it's not great. And I feel like that's where the Cowboys have the biggest advantage in this game.
Yeah, and I think, the 49ers defense, it's extremely good. Like, let's not take away credit from there, but so is the Cowboys defense. And in fact, I think the Cowboys defense is on par with the 49ers defense, maybe in the pass rush area as well. So definitely in the pass rush area, I would say. So I think there's lots of opportunity to kind of recreate some of the similar situations that were making the Rams uncomfortable.
Yes.
But I also think that, look, I mean, it's hard not to watch the 49ers game and see that being a very clear.
Why can't the
blueprint.
Cowboys do that on defense? Right?
I mean, honestly, it's the 49ers seem like a very good, strong analog for the Cowboys right now with Jimmy Garoppolo playing for them. I think Cooper Rush is playing like Garoppolo right now. And I think the way that the 49ers wanted to win the game or win all the games with Garoppolo is how the Cowboys are trying to win games with Cooper Rush. So I think it's a pretty simple, game plan to kind of transcribe from what you saw last week. The question now becomes, can you execute it the way the 49ers did? So I think they can. And I think we talked about the problems on the offensive side. I think for the Cowboys, they need not only – I think that they're going to have a good defensive performance against the Rams. But the problem is that I think they need to have a great defensive performance against the Rams to win. So – turnovers, they're going to need to find a way to get the ball back. Yeah, fumbles, sacks,
all that kind of stuff.
All that stuff's got to happen. It's in obviously the points they got to. That's obviously the bottom line. But beyond that too, I think they're going to need to find a way to get the ball back for their offense. They're going to need to find a way to get good field position. They can't play the game the way they did against Washington last week, right? And I don't know that Washington. I don't know. I think that Washington's defense may be better than what the Rams defense is. So at least up front, overall, at least up front, I mean, I understand Aaron Donald, but I think the talent spread out of the Washington may be a little bit better. So I think that the Cowboys can do this, but I think that they need to find ways on defense to, again, continue to support the offense by good field position, turnovers, getting off the field.
Yeah. So here's my little hot take for what the Cowboys should do on defense. Just let Cooper Kupp eat. We've seen this now in 2 games this season where Cooper Kupp has caught at least 10 passes in a game, but in both those games, he was averaging under 10 yards a catch. Like if their offense is all Cooper Kupp catching passes underneath and they're not creating big plays down the field, you are going to be fine, right? Because it just means that the Rams aren't creating chunk plays in the passing game, and that's the biggest difference from this year's team compared to last year's. Robert Woods, before he got hurt, was a super reliable receiver. He was on pace to have 1,000 yards. Once he got injured, they brought in Odell, who created a vertical element to this game or to their offense. They don't have that right now. They're using Ben Skoranek as like a hybrid wide receiver fullback.
As their fullback deep threat, which
Yeah,
is the
they're
craziest
using
thing ever.
Tyler Higbee had 10 catches last week.
Yeah.
Like there's no vertical passing game in this offense. So keep guys close to the line of scrimmage, stop the run. If they want to throw the ball for 5 or for 8, 9 yards, that's fine. It just what you're doing is you're speeding up the game, and that's great for our Cowboys team that's on the road with a backup quarterback. Would love Dallas
Please,
would love nothing.
let's get
else.
out of here.
Yeah, Dallas would love nothing else to be like, hey, you guys want to make this a 1-score game in the fourth quarter? Great, let's do it.
We've done nothing but win those games so far.
Yes,
so
exactly.
we're on board with that. And I think you brought up such a fantastic point. Last year they were filthy with wide receivers.
Yes.
I mean, whether it was Woods, they got Beckham. Now
Van Jefferson, who's not playing right now for them.
Jefferson, who's not playing now. Suddenly, no Woods, no Beckham. They have this guy that has been playing, like I said, kind of a deep threat fullback position for him. He's a great little player, but the problem is that it's nothing opposite of Cooper Kupp that's like striking the fear into you. And even I'm totally blanking on the tight end's name.
Tyler Higbee.
Yeah, Higbee. Like even with Higbee, he's got some athleticism to him. He can be a little bit of a threat.
But you're not.
I'm sticking J-Rod Curse. I'm sticking J-Rod Curse on him. I'm not thinking twice about it. So it's like. I have a hard time like being threatened by what the Rams are doing right now, because outside of Cooper Kupp, who I think is, in the conversation for best wide receiver in the game, none of these guys are able to overcome the circumstance of their offense. That's ultimately the problem.
What I want in this game is I want Matt Stafford challenging Trevon Diggs down the field against with Allen Robinson. Sure. Like, please give me those targets, right? I want Dallas to have 9 guys within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage and like, hey, if you want to try to run the ball on us, great. If you want to try to run little slants, and because the thing is, as we've seen this year, the Rams can't sustain drives for a couple of reasons. They create no big plays. They had 0 passing plays over 20 yards last week. They have a bad offensive line that gets a bunch of penalties, and Matt Stafford's turning the ball over. He has the most interceptions in the league. That's got to be your formula in this game, is make the Rams go the length of the field.
Again, I don't know how the Cowboys don't have confidence going. I mean, again, not that I think they're guaranteed to win, but like this is the Bengals game. Like you're playing almost the same type of offense, the same situation, right? Where they've got a depleted offensive line. They got a quarterback who's going to take a bunch of hits and is already kind of banged up a little bit. You've got a superstar wide receiver who he's basically, that's all they've got. And if he doesn't like completely take over the game, what are they going to do? This is essentially the same situation as the Cowboys played with the Bengals.
I agree. All right, we're going to make our predictions for this game. But before we do that, I want to tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for all of your football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game that you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all of your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. It is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite games and events, including NFL, NBA, MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Landon, my favorite time of the week, prediction time. Who do you have winning this game and why?
I've kind of gone back and forth on this a lot, and I do think it's going to be a close game. I think these are 2 very evenly matched teams. Styles make fights, which is a huge part of this
as
well.
Constructed right now, because I actually think Styles had Dak.
Oh yeah, they would crush the Rams.
I think they
should
be favorites in this game.
I'm pretty shocked that they are more than a field goal dogs. Like that's pretty shocking to me. Now listen. The argument that I've been making with myself is the one that I briefly brought up earlier, right? Where in the scope of the NFL, really good teams don't stay bad for a long time, especially really good coach teams. So there is certainly the idea that an embarrassing divisional loss, that a bounce back game is certainly possible. However, they're coming off a short week. against a division rival who is notoriously physical football team. They're going to be coming in to play another pretty physical football team in the Cowboys that obviously is defensive oriented. We're going to run the ball and knock you around in the run game as well on offense. I think for me, with all the kind of wounds that the Rams are kind of limping around with, it's just going to be too much for them. And I think that this could be this is going to be one or two things to me, Marcus. It's going to be the Rams either coming back and saving their season and turning it around and, winning against a Cowboys team that has their backup quarterback playing in their homes in the Rams stadium, or the Cowboys are going to put a fork in these guys this Sunday.
Could be.
And if they beat them at home and they've lost now, 3 in a row would that be for the Rams? I think
there would be 2 and 3 on the season.
They'd be 2 and 3 on the season, but I don't know if it's 3 in a row. But that's a really rough spot to be in at this point. So I'm picking the Cowboys. I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair because I just don't anticipate the Cowboys being able to score a bunch of points against the Rams defense, despite the fact that, what we talked about, I think the Rams defense has enough superstars to kind of mix it up and make it dangerous for the Cowboys. But I don't trust anything on that Rams offense outside of Cooper Kupp. And the guy that's got to deliver the ball to Cooper Kupp is just going to be taking all kinds of hits all throughout the game. If the Cowboys can find a way to slow down the run game, because that's the other thing we didn't bring up, right? The Rams running back situation ain't great either, and combined with the offensive line, they just do not have a run game. They're barely averaging over 3 yards a carry. So I'm going to pick the Cowboys to win 21-17. Another team that won't be able to score 20 points in the Cowboys. I anticipate Stafford maybe having as many as 2 or 3 turnovers just because he's already thrown a lot of interceptions as it was. He's going against a guy like Trayvon Diggs, who he's gonna call every ball in the air, and I think he's gonna fumble the ball too because I think that Micah Parsons is going to introduce himself to Stafford pretty quickly and often throughout this game.
I think Landon, the first drive is going to be so important in this game for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So we saw last week against the 49ers, even though the Rams didn't have a lot of success on offense, first drive of the game, 14 plays, 54 yards, took off 8 minutes of the clock and kicked the field goal. Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the league at designing an opening game script, right? Almost every week they go down and get points. They did it against Buffalo in week 1. They did it against the 49ers in week 2 or in week 4. If the Cowboys stop them on the opening drive of the game and force a punt, I think you'll know. I think you'll know that this offense is just cooked. But if the Rams walk the ball down the field, they score a touchdown, they get up 7-0, that's when the Cowboys can get into a little bit of trouble. So keep an eye on that first drive of the game. I think the Rams, it sounds incredible. I think they are the more desperate team here going into this game. They have to win this one.
Yeah.
They have to. Dallas, not so much, right? If they lose,
which is crazy.
It's absolutely crazy.
That's just so crazy that the Cowboys are not the most desperate team with the backup quarterback. Right. That's just nuts.
The Cowboys have a game against Philadelphia next week. That's obviously a more important game. They know that Dak is coming back relatively soon. It's not that big of a deal if you lose the game on the road to the Super Bowl champions. I think because of that, this is going to have to be the kitchen sink game for Sean McVay. They've got to win. And if you looked at the Rams schedule coming up, it doesn't get easier. They've got a brutal schedule coming up. So I'm going to pick the Rams. I'm going to pick them to, let's say, 23-17. I think this game is going to be close. I don't see the Rams scoring a ton of points, and I certainly don't see the Cowboys scoring a lot either.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it'll be a low-scoring affair. The question becomes which team can. Honestly, I think the question becomes which team can take care of the football better. Yeah, and whoever wins the turnover battle will likely win the game.
I mean, somehow I actually trust Cooper Rush to take care of the football more than Matt Stafford. He's not going to create the same big plays as Stafford, I don't think.
I know, if there's look, Cooper Rush is due for a turnover regression game. It's
coming. Yeah, it's coming.
But I mean, if you're gonna have one, Heck, have it against the game that you're playing Matthew Stafford, because maybe he'll match you 1 for 1 and it won't make a difference.
Exactly. All right. That is it for today's show. Thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen of the day. Now make your second listen to Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts, all the same places that you download the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. We'll see you guys after the game. Enjoy week 5. See you next time.